Hey, Bigpod. We have
Hey,
quite a bit of security news, some AI
really?
news, and of course an update on Google.
Ooh.
These are basically the same subjects that we've talking about multiple times at this point. We've got a lot to talk about today, nonetheless. But
Yep.
in the meantime, Slackware is still going to be like my least favorite distro. Cue the music.
Cue the music. Hello guys, this is Bigpod, and today I'm wearing this gray shirt, I guess, and right over there or there, depending on how I place him, is Josh, my co-host for the day,
Yes,
and almost every other episode we ever made.
all but like 3 of them, I think.
Yeah,
I might be wrong.
4
on
I
that.
think.
Maybe 4. I don't know. I think you've only been absent on 1 episode. No, 2 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so your attendance is still way better than mine. But yeah, anyways, this is No Tucks Allowed. The world's most favorite, tech bro podcast, because, we just talk like we're bros about this stuff. Don't take us for any credible source for anything, because we're just 2 guys chatting here. That's really what it is.
and today we offer you a plethora of topics like Perplexity buying Chrome, Dockerhub shipping XZ backdoors, Reddit having problem with wayback machine, man suing Microsoft over 11 Windows, and RISC-V, well, sucks. But in this case it's code, so yeah. And you know who has opinions about RISC-V code
And it's not Big
because
Pod.
it's in Linux kernel.
Yep.
So let's go on the show.
Yeah, so
Josh, where should we start?
how about we just start from the top here with Perplexity, right? So, if for some reason you do not know who Perplexity is, they're an AI company. They make this thing called Perplexity
Of course they are.
AI. I've never used their model. Now that I think about it, have you?
No,
Yeah.
I heard about them just in passing. It's not really a relevant company in my opinion.
Not as relevant as like the more public-facing images of Grok, Gemini, ChatGPT, and so on. But anyways, they've got a lot of venture capital money, and they decided, you know what, we're going to put a bid in on this Google lawsuit, and let Google know that, hey, we got $34.5 billion in cash. We can just give Google and have Chrome. Oh, and if you're concerned about Chromium, it's fine. It's fine. We promise to invest $3 billion into development of the open source project.
Okay.
So, first of all, they have even promised that Google will remain the default search engine rather than implementing their own AI powered search result. So, Bigpod, assuming by some stretch of a miracle, Perplexity AI, Perplexity buys Google Chrome and rebrands it to Perplexity Chrome.
Yeah.
Now, Chrome is a massive project, right?
Very massive.
It is the end result of the Chromium project, which is the most forked browser in the world at this point. Because, everybody branches off of Chromium somehow, some way, except for Firefox. So, and, I'm sure that somebody's going to say Ladybird secretly in their heads, but Ladybird is not even a shippable browser yet because it doesn't even support 60% of the web standards. So,
Yes.
we're talking about Chromium and Firefox.
Actual browsers.
Yeah, actual browsers. Things that do the things that we expect browsers to do these days rather than, rendering
Yes.
HTML pages. So, anyways, There, now obviously, right now as it stands, whoever controls Chrome basically controls
Control the
Chromium.
internet.
Yeah, and they control Chromium, which then they control the internet, and they basically just tell the IEEE what web browsers should support. That's how it is right now.
Yeah.
So, obviously, this is an AI company, and it's a publicly traded company. So stockholders are going to basically tell this company, "Hey, we want AI in Chrome." That's going to be a thing that happens, because heaven forbid they're putting it in all the other browsers that are downstream from Chrome. And they push it to the point where, Chromium itself is shipping plugins for AI, at the very least, I would assume. Because, it's an open source project, so they're going to have the framework there at least. Which
Yeah.
would... But this is basically just, paving the way for, a web browser to basically have an AI model built into it. So I know that we touched on this with the Microsoft Edge update a couple of weeks back, but first of all, what are the chances that this is actually going to happen? Right? Let's talk about that. Right?
Yeah. My opinion, I think it will highly matter on the fact if Chrome and Chromium are together, if they are one entity when it comes to the sale. Because I think while Google cannot retain a controlling interest in probably either Google Chrome or Chromium, if things go how they might go, it is likely that Chromium would go to if possible, to a completely separate third party. Whether it be Chromium Foundation, whether it be Linux Foundation, whether it be some random other thing, we don't know. But the reality is very likely we're gonna see some open source group take over Chromium. And there are many reasons why, even for Google to allow that and want that. Primary one being Chrome OS.
Yeah.
But the actual Google Chrome, the browser most well known that uses Chromium as a basis, yeah, that one could get sold, possibly to Perplexity, possibly to someone else, or they might just trash it if they do not want to give somebody that kind of an edge.
Well, the way that I see it, I would much prefer the Chromium project to be just tossed over towards an existing group, like say the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a judge and I don't know anything about technology, I would have to ask the question of what does the Linux Foundation have to contribute towards Chromium. So I might be be a bit more willing to listen to Perplexity's proposal that they buy it.
Yeah, but
now
at this point, that doesn't mean judge has anything to do with it. They will just order divestment of Chrome.
Yeah,
they won't say how it must be divested.
Yeah.
Let's remember that the primarily what they will say is you need to get rid of Chrome in X amount of days of your portfolio. Which means in X amount of days they will have to get rid of Chrome and Chromium. So the two options are sale and giving it to somebody like Linux Foundation, which for Chromium makes sense. Not so much for Chrome.
That's true. Or they could just spin Chrome off under the Cloud Native Foundation.
But again, doesn't make sense since it was always a productized version of Chromium.
Yeah. But well, I mean Chromium, not Chrome, but
Yeah, but again, Cloud Native Foundation is again Linux Foundation. That is like whether
yeah,
it's Linux Foundation, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, whichever one. Uh, what I think would happen is they would create a new foundation called Chromium Foundation, which would work under Linux
somebody else.
Foundation
Yeah.
anyway.
No, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Or they just call it like the Browser Foundation because
Yeah.
everything is forked off of Chromium.
Yeah.
Of course, there's also the chance that OpenAI purchases the Chromium project and Chrome, because they've also put in a bid to do so. Now,
Yeah.
OpenAI is part. I believe it's at least partially owned by Microsoft, which develops.
No.
No, I thought they were.
No. No. As far as I know, the answer is no.
No, Microsoft incorporates OpenAI. OpenAI.
Yeah, multi-billion-dollar investment, but it's an entirely independent company.
Oh, okay.
In certain cases, if things change, Microsoft could gain about 49% of OpenAI, but of the for-profit arm, no, correction, of the profits, but they don't own 41% of OpenAI, as far as I understand.
Okay. They've just invested.
It's
All right.
it's a giant insanity, essentially.
Yeah.
Because you should remember, OpenAI is built out of a foundation, multiple holdings, or at least one holding company, and basically multiple for-profit subsidiaries. You have a non-profit OpenAI, then you have multiple for-profit subsidiaries, and only one of them is Microsoft is directly invested into.
Ah.
Yeah, it's a complex web of things.
Yep. So, anyways, I don't see. I do have some fears about this. Depending on.
But before we go into your fears, Mr. Paranoia, I have a question. What does this mean for Chrome OS?
That is a question. Because
with that goes the copyright or trademark for Chrome.
Yeah,
so they might not be able to use the name Chrome OS, first of all.
Actually,
second of all,
now that I think about it, I haven't heard anything about Chrome OS in this Google lawsuit whatsoever. So
yeah.
Google might not be required to divest Chrome OS.
That's actually what I was going to ask you. If do you think Google will be required to divest of Chrome OS at the same time as Chrome, since they are so interlinked?
It depends on how separate Chrome OS is from Chrome, like internally within Google. Like, is it the same guys developing Chrome OS as that are developing Chromium? That's what we need to know. So, assuming that Google doesn't have to divest Chrome OS and they can maintain control over that project, maybe then they have a valid argument for keeping the branding. So with them selling Chrome, they could sell the Chromium trademark, and then force anybody that takes over Google Chrome as we know it to rebrand that to something else.
Yeah.
And then,
or it could be the other way around.
And
they
then
would be forced to
Chrome OS can continue to maintain Chrome, just as like a downstream fork of Chromium rather than
yes,
being an inline fork.
If they are allowed to do that, if they are not forced to use somebody else's Chrome.
Yeah, Lighted. That's a best case scenario for Google.
Yeah. Now let's get over your fears. So what are your fears?
Okay. So we have these open source AI models. We talked about them last week. OpenAI just released them, and Olama just released them. Released theirs. Assuming OpenAI is allowed to purchase the Chromium project, instead of it being handed off to the Linux Foundation, they can. That gives them probably full rights to just build ChatGPT into Chromium.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Now, obviously, they might not be able to ship the training data, but they can.
You don't need to.
They don't need to.
You just need to connect to the API endpoint.
Yeah. And at that point, then, how much control does that give OpenAI over the AI space? Because people will use whatever's the default.
A lot.
Yeah.
But so do they have now, because ChatGPT is kind of the default, because it was the first. And it's
it was the
best.
first big name AI, yes. But I don't know if it was actually the first or if like one of these other options.
The
were
first
the
of its class. The first of its class. The first last language model was GPT.
Either way, it is the most popular one. So that just stretches their control over the market share, and we could potentially be trading one monopoly for another one in a completely different market that's still very relevant towards this conversation. So that's what I fear. Because, heaven forbid, I don't want AI integration in my web browser. I don't want AI to just automatically book a flight for me, or set up an event reminder. I do like the idea of it, coming back and suggesting things to look up on something that you're previously researching. But depending on what I'm researching, I probably don't ever want to be reminded of that. Especially when it comes around to some of the topics where we have to dig into for some of this show, like exactly what Meta was pirating, and so on.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm concerned about. Either way, we've been touching on the subject for a little bit long here, so let's move on a little bit here. Let's talk a little bit about Docker. Bigpod, you know quite a bit more about containers than I do.
Yeah.
This is just a fact of life. But this report here from Bleeping Computer is saying that Dockerhub is still finding container images. And of course, their data just shows 35 Linux images, but there's probably more because it's Dockerhub after all, that are still vulnerable to the old XZ utils backdoor that we reported on back in March of last year.
I wouldn't say they are vulnerable to the backdoor, but they are shipping the binaries with the backdoor. It's slightly different because while the backdoor probably, likely, maybe won't affect them because they don't use SSH inside the container, they still have that specific version of XZ inside the container.
Yeah, so how vulnerable is like the host operating system to this?
Very
if I remember
likely not at all.
If I remember right, this XZ utils backdoor involved the use of systemd, which is not present on a lot of container images.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder. Now, I do know that there are some container images that do ship systemd as well as SSH as running services inside them, and there are a few Debian containers, for example, that do actually run this because there have been Debian developers experimenting with like their own image-based system, much like Fedora's Atomic systems.
Yeah.
That is a thing that they were playing around with, although
Now those would be vulnerable.
Yeah, those would be vulnerable, but at the same time, they're also like not the ones that are like super like advertised. Like if I go to Dockerhub and I look up Debian, that's not the image I'm talking about. I'm talking about like Debian-Atomic or something like that. I don't actually know
Yeah.
what they're named, but I just know that they exist. But so it makes me wonder exactly where they found. They don't really mention like all the containers that they listed here. They just say, "Oh yeah, there's 35 images," and actually, I just clicked the link here in the article. Let's see, give it a quick scrub here. Let's see here. We have. Oh, okay. Here's a wonderful Debian Docker image for you. The tag is rc-buggy-2024-0311. That sounds like March 11th, 2024.
Yeah.
Which is when this vulnerability first was identified. So this is just basically just like a tag version. Here's an experimental tag from the same time too. So this leads me to another question that I have for this article. So sometimes when it comes to the world of software development, it's a good idea to see how deep a vulnerability goes, which means that sometimes you might need older code to sit back and test against, right?
Yeah.
So I think that this is better handled in a container image than a live running system.
Yeah.
And so I question like, is this just another scare tactic article? Is that really what this is?
Could also be.
Because
But remember, this kind of things is that they're there. Like, you just upload them and they are there, and many times they're built automatically. Now, for example, Debian has actually said that those images are not supported, but they are left as historical artifacts.
Yeah, that's
specifically the Debian ones with the exploit.
Which that's for that use case that I just mentioned. So,
it's also important to know that getting to that tag, the specific tag that has that bugged version or vulnerable version, is actually hard because you need to know the exact tag. If you do not enter the tag, you're not gonna get that tag. You're gonna get latest. So you have to be very exact in asking for that specific version of the image.
Let's see. I wonder if I could just search it here.
So what this means is, if you aren't exactly deciding you're gonna get it, you're gonna get this specific image, this specific version of it, you're not likely to get this specific bugged version.
Yeah, mostly because it's not in the latest tag, and
yeah,
if you just ship if you pull in like the Debian 12 tag, which you're probably more likely to do, you're getting a newer version. You're getting a patched version of these libraries.
Whether you're pulling latest, whether you're pulling any kind of tag, you need to be very specific in the tag, because remember, tag can be associated with one image at a time.
Yeah.
So whether it be latest, whether it be 12, whether it be 11, unless it's that specific tag that it's tagged with, you ain't gonna get it.
Yep. So I don't think that this is actually going to be an issue.
Yeah, but I do say, if you built an image around that time, I would recommend rebuilding it if you haven't done that after that.
Which, honestly, if you're running applications like that, you should it's probably at least a good security practice to update the container image every now and then. Lighted. The idea of Docker is that you don't really have to do that. And it also depends on what you're building the container for. Like, if you're building a container to run some piece of software that hasn't seen an update in 20 some odd years, but you're able to get it running in a container, that's fine. But like for like your web server that you're building a custom container image for, maybe it's a good idea to have like those core utilities that are built into the container image to be. Well, anyways, Reddit has came out and said that, hey, we caught these AI companies scraping data, so we put our APIs behind a paywall, rather big paywall. They said this, I believe, like a year or two ago. And, that caused a whole fiasco here for, like, app developers that, made, like, these Reddit apps and made some big news for a little bit. Well, anyways, fast forwarding to the present day, Reddit now says that, hey, we caught these AI companies scraping data, not from Reddit, but from the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. Now, if you do not know what the Wayback Machine is, do yourself a favor, go to archive.org, and they'll have a little search bar for the Wayback Machine up on the top portion of the website. Basically, the way that the Wayback Machine works is that it's a project hosted by the Internet Archive that takes snapshots of various websites so you can see what they look like through history. Yeah. And the Wayback Machine has been very, very nice, to go back and see what the internet used to look like.
Or even just to see what is happening if page was changed.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful resource for, us. And it turns out also a wonderful resource for like the AI companies, because it turns out that any content that was supposed to be for 2023 on the internet is a gold mine for like properly training your AI models. So, rather than asking the Internet Archive if the Internet Archive is going to do something about it, Reddit just said, "Oh, we're just going to block it." So, my question is, will this move make AI models even worse than they currently are?
No. I don't think Reddit is actually that good of a source of data. And what data comes out of Reddit is probably highly moderated anyway.
That is true. That said, one thing that I found for Reddit is that it's a good resource for like product reviews. Oftentimes you won't get like the best product, but you will get a product that performs probably about as much as you expect it to when you pull it off of Reddit. So
interesting.
That's one valuable resource that I found Reddit for. That said, obviously, like the other things that I found off of Reddit, like various commands to run into a terminal. Always take those with a grain of salt, obviously. But when it comes around to something like that, been pretty solid. For example, like my favorite subreddit is actually Patient Gamers, where they just recommend old video games to people that have been sitting idle for so long that they've got massive markdowns on like their purchase price, so you can get them relatively cheap. So that's a subreddit that I enjoy going to every now and then, because I am a bit of an active Reddit user. It's not like it's not my preferred social media platform, but it is one that I do go to every now and then. In fact, some of the articles that we've found for the show, I have found through Reddit, simply because nobody else is real. It's not being. A lot of those articles aren't being picked up by like the news aggregators and so on.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I find interesting is that the Reddit's always been like fairly open towards like the Internet Archive in the past. So I wonder how much this could bring issues for like that relationship that they've had, because I think that the Internet Archive is probably one of the most valuable resources we have on just modern day culture.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, if you got a couple dollars, maybe toss some money to the Internet Archive or Wikipedia. just one of those two. Both those companies, they could use some support, especially with the hosting costs that they have nowadays, because of all these wonderful AI models just blanket scraping the entire thing. So so at this point then, Bigpod, if Reddit does block the Internet Archive, would this cause like these other websites to also block the Internet Archive? Like, does that?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
I guess that could make sense because after all, news agencies have been blocking the Internet Archive for years at this point. So
Yeah.
it's just a bit of a touch point there. So let's talk about some fun news. Right? Let's cheer up a little bit, because Americans be Americans. A guy in California got so upset about being forced to upgrade to Windows 11 that he decided he's going to sue Microsoft. And it turns out he might actually have a valid argument.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Actually, I don't think he has even a shred of an argument. Because then basically because that would then give precedent that basically any piece of software, if it is even a shred of popular, has to be supported for essentially infinite amount of time. And that's a dangerous precedent to set in any case.
Yeah, well, he's saying that Microsoft already set a precedent, first of all, with how it's historically supported older versions of Windows. Like, Windows XP was supported for 7 years after Vista's release.
Okay.
In fact, even Vista has seen a longer support cycle than Windows 10 after the next version of Windows would release. So he's saying that off of the prior set precedent, Windows 10 should see at least another 4 years of support from Microsoft. That's a bit of a stretch. I would say that if it gets any additional support for free, it'd be like maybe 2 years. Because how long has Windows 11 already been out? Like 3 or 4 years now, something like that.
Something like that.
It's been out for a while. There's been plenty of time. There's been plenty of time to save $20 a week and eventually buy yourself a more modern computer. So
yeah, and more importantly, like, remember, it's 4 years since Windows 11 released, since it was released end of 2021, and it's exactly 10 years or about 10 years since release of Windows 10, which was released mid 2015. And like, if you actually look at the actual numbers, it isn't actually that long.
no.
Or it is actually long enough. Remember, we're talking about Windows 10. It was released 10 years ago. Windows XP, for example, had... I don't care about how long its support cycle has been after the release.
Yeah, it was too long because it turns out the version of Windows that they released after that anyway was that bad.
Yes.
So Windows Vista was a bit of a dumpster fire for Microsoft. Even though it got pretty decent towards the end of it, it was just a little bit too heavy too soon.
Like the release, the support cycle for Windows XP was 13 years. With professional, even less. So, but let's take a more modern era, so Windows 7. Which was one of the more popular ones, ended its support cycle with like mainstream support cycle in 2016. That is nothing more than 7 years. So Microsoft has been supporting Windows 11 for longer than its probably most popular version of Windows to date. Out of happiness of users who were happy with it. So I don't care about the argument how long after release. I care about the absolute support cycle time, which has been, well, which has been already 10 years. And if you really want a support cycle to continue, you can buy extended support.
That is
So
true.
if you do not want to switch to 11, you still have the option to buy extended support. And if you do not want to do that, you can always switch an operating to something a bit more supported, like Linux.
Yeah, like Linux or, the BSD alternatives, which, if you're talking about like legacy device support, at this point, BSD is starting to look like a better proposition than even Linux. So, anyways, so let me run down his argument here. His argument is based off of California's business advertising and consumer legal relief regulations. By forcing necessary upgrades on Windows 10 users, and this isn't. He's not arguing with the software. He's talking about the hardware requirements that Windows 11 has. So he says that Microsoft is forcing him to upgrade his computer to one that supports TPM 2.0 and secure boot, he says that according to the rules of California, Microsoft can't force him to do that. Well, Microsoft also can't force him to continue using Windows.
Microsoft can't force him to upgrade, yes, but Microsoft also, but he also cannot force Microsoft to support his specific use case.
That is entirely true. I mean, at some point, we need to let old hardware die. That's the truth. Because heaven forbid. Let's look at the 32-bit PC market share right now. I can guarantee you, anybody that's listening to this show, or anybody, and some future user that's listening to this show is probably not listening to it on a 32-bit computer.
Yeah.
Probably not. Now, I understand that there is a segment of the population out there that is using 32-bit computers, but that is dwindling. Like, actually. When was the last 32-bit computer made? I believe that was like 2007. It's been a while now. And at least in the x86 space. Obviously, in the ARM space, 32-bit is much more prevalent.
Yes, but even there, the support for the prevalence of it has been dwindling outside of very specific chips, because, well, ARM64 is now a thing. It's been a thing for a long time, and like most devices that run ARM nowadays have more than 4 gigs of RAM, which is kind of the big requirement for the 64 thing.
Yeah. So, and honestly, if Microsoft is willing to admit that other operating systems exist in court, they could just tell them, it's just like, hey, you don't have to upgrade to Windows 11, just upgrade to Linux.
Yeah. They
could just tell them that, and then the judge will basically just go like, yep, that works, and sign off on it. So, this guy's argument is, I think that he's literally just wasting his time. But
yes,
he's an American. We can just sue and make frivolous lawsuits right up until we piss off a judge.
Well, at the end of the day, in my opinion, his argument is not wrong, because, well, his argument, he's correct in saying those things, but I do think his argument is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the number we should look at is absolute number of years that support cycle has been happening, which, let's be clear, Windows 10 has one of the biggest support cycles that there ever was in since Windows XP. And I believe it might be Windows Vista might have about the same length. But remember, Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 don't even reach more than 7 years, if I remember, if I read that correctly.
They never reached 7 years, and I don't think that they ever saw anything more than a 15% desktop market share.
Yeah, but they weren't supported for more than 7 years. Like, and even, okay, yes, Vista did, because it did for, okay, even Vista not, because it was for mainstream support ended 8 years with extended support 5 more years.
Which, that's probably about what I expected Vista would have gotten.
Yes, and it's realistically what you should expect from any version of an operating system, of a system, whatever.
That said, if you want telemetry-free Windows and you're a Windows 7 diehard and you're still using Windows 7 on a modern-day computer, first of all, Windows 7 is not telemetry-free. Sorry.
Yes, it's not.
It's not. It's in fact probably worse than Windows 10 in some ways. Maybe not as bad as Windows 11, but it's probably worse than Windows 10. Because, it's probably transmitting that stuff over HTTP rather than HTTPS. But either way, you probably shouldn't be expecting... You probably should be, running up-to-date software on your computer that's connected to the internet, especially if, you're doing very, very important things on your computer, like, finance work and all that. Because now you're literally just playing with fire if you're not updating your system. Like, actually. But overall, like, if you're concerned about security updates, maybe just don't use Windows. Or, buy the new computer.
And remember, Microsoft, if there is something actually important, Microsoft has been known to update even heavily out of support operating systems.
That's true. Like, I remember seeing a news article well after the Windows XP end of life date, where they pushed an update to the Windows XP update cycle.
Yes,
because there was a vulnerability that bad.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's going to see absolutely no support. He might just see accidental support. But he can also just disconnect the Ethernet cable and just never worry about that. So let's move on yet again here. So every now and then we talk about some discussions about what's going on in the Linux kernel, because it's a massive project, and it's a bit of an industry leading project as well. So especially when it comes around to like hardware support. So when we talk about like these RISC-V systems, oftentimes the Linux kernel is involved in that topic as well, because that's where the development for the hardware is being dealt with, is from the Linux kernel. Because I don't see the Windows NT kernel or Apple whatever supporting these RISC-V systems, at least yet. So it kind of makes me wonder what's going on over there, and I got looking through like my news articles, and I find this, where a RISC-V developer puts in a couple patches that are a little late in the 6.17 merge window, with Linus Torvalds, coming in and saying that, hey, this code came in a little too late. I asked for an early request because, I'm busy traveling, and, if you're traveling, it makes sense, just let everybody know that you're going to be traveling for a little bit. You might be a little bit slower to work on some things. And then he says, and he got looking into this patch, and he says, this adds various garbage that isn't RISC-V specific to generic header files. And by garbage, I really mean it. This is stuff that nobody should ever send to me, never mind it being late in the merge window. So, Bigpod, this is where I look to you, because I'm not a programmer. You know a little bit about this. you know a little bit about this C development or like this assembly development. I would assume, at least because I don't.
Yeah, I know a little bit. Not much, but a little bit.
Yeah, so he's talking about like this pointless make underscore 32 underscore from underscore to use 16 helper, which I believe is a function. And
Yeah, helper function or yeah, by this signature I see it's probably helper function that essentially makes a unsigned I guess unsigned 32-bit integer based on two unsigned 16-bit integers, which essentially in theory would be plus a plus b.
okay. Well, anyways, Linus says that thing actively makes it makes a worse place to live. It's basically a useless garbage that makes any user incomprehensible and actively worse than just not using the stupid helper. The thing that was already there. So you write the code as input to output, and here's the expected result. You maybe add a case to make sure that B doesn't have high bits that pollutes in the end result. So maybe it's not going to be exactly pretty, but it's going to be wrong. But it's not going to be wrong or incomprehensible. But you get a result. So in contrast, if you make the 32-bit to from to 16 unsigned 16 bits, you have not a effing clue what in the world that order even is. So you just make things worse, and you added a helper function to it to generate a non-RISC-V file, where people are apparently supposed to use it to make other code worse too. So
essentially, from what I understand, this would be essentially taking one line of code and exchanging it for another that is a helper function. I don't know why, but why they would do that.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the patches and see if anybody left some insightful
Yeah.
comments into that. But anyways, Linus just came out and rejected it, and of course, It's Foss wrote a news article about it because, heaven forbid, it's another glorious Linus rant. Because Linus ranting on the kernel mailing list is nothing new, and it's always at least mildly entertaining to read. But he's a heck of a lot kinder than he used to be.
Yeah.
But he's basically telling them you're free to submit patches to the Linux kernel. Just submit them to 6.18 early in the merge window and without the garbage.
Yeah. And remember, this comes on tails of Linus removing or dropping support for Linux for Bcache in Linux kernel for now.
No, that is true. I mean, it's entirely possible that the guy that submitted these patches, he was basically running behind in whatever his real life schedule is, and he was told that he needed to submit these patches sooner or later, and he just wrote a bunch of messy stuff and didn't really do a good job of cleaning up after himself and hit the submit button. That's honestly what I think happened. So, that's basically what we have today. So, if you would like to give us some feedback, or send us messages, or even suggest topics for us to talk about, you can send us an email to contact@tuxspace.com, where we get these wonderful, glorious emails in almost never, except for like our monthly test email that we get telling us that hey, we're spending money on AWS for stuff. Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. So, anyways, it sure would be nice to hear from our audience. I know that you exist out there because we've gotten emails from you before. and I know some of you do actively listen to them. So I'm curious, what your favorite shade of blue is. I'm certain that you've got one. I'm certain that you do. But of course, if you would like to, talk with each other, we do have a Discord server. People do talk into it. Just go to tuckspace.com/Discord, and that will pull you straight to it. And if you would like to support our adventures, because, doing things the way that we do does cost us money, because heaven forbid, the free options are all terrible for hosting a podcast. Like, actually.
Yeah.
Actually. I can publish this entire show for free through Spotify. I really could. But when it comes to Spotify, then we have to integrate dynamically generated ads into your podcast. Which,
oh great,
if you're getting those, you're not pulling through the source of truth. Sorry. If you're getting ads in our show, those don't exist yet. So if you're pulling through them, first of all, find out where you're pulling them from. If you're not pulling them through Spotify, or you're pulling our show into your podcast feeder through somebody else, send me an email. Let me know, because it could be an illegal distribution. Because it turns out, Bigpod, that you and I control our podcast 100%. Because, like I said, we're doing this the hard way. We have a little server based in Atlanta, Georgia, that feeds an RSS feed to your podcast player, and tells you where you can download the file from properly and officially. That's something that not a lot of podcasters can actually say, because they're not willing to pay, obviously, or they don't have a handy Bigpod to fix things for them whenever they wind up breaking things. But it turns out that obviously it's not cheap. Well, it actually is kind of cheap, but it's a noticeable impact on the monthly finances, because that's my daily run to McDonald's money, that I'm spending there, But if you would like to help us out, with funding the show and increasing things because we keep proposing these wild ideas as to things that we can do on the Tuckspace server with each other, that maybe eventually we need to start stepping up a little bit higher in our VPS tier. So just give us a couple dollars on the Patreon right there, patreon.com/notuxallowed. If you do subscribe, you will get a more premium audio feed, because I know Hi-Fi Bros exist, so you will get a higher bitrate audio, which I assume that you want to hear Bigpod in high definition. I assume. And of course, we eventually do drop a little bit of nuggets in there, like a pre-show, or a day in the life of Bigpod, or a day in the life of Josh. And of course, if you want to find some general links, just go to tuckspace.com. That links off to all of our personal content as well. Like I run a YouTube channel. It does exist. It will be getting content on it. I know it's been like a year and a half since I posted anything there. Or you can watch Bigpod attempt to play video games on his channel.
Yeah.
Are you still playing City Skyline? It's been a minute since I looked.
No. Last time I was programming something, and my life got a bit rocky, so I have to schedule around that.
Right. So you are playing the video game of VS Code.
Yes.
Okay. Just checking on that. So anyways, I think that's all we got for today. So Bigpod, I'm going to go and step out now and continue hating my life, because I still don't like Slackware.
Goodbye then.
Goodbye.